Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
Okay, good evening, and welcome to the February 26, 2024 Town of Exeter Select Board meeting. The board is going to move downstairs to the wheelwright room for about 10 or 15 minutes for a board interview, at which point we'll return up here and start our regular business meeting. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well. Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
Good evening once again, and welcome to the February 26, 2024 Town of Exeter Select Board meeting. The meeting was called to order at 6:50. The board went down to the wheelwright room for a board interview, and now we're returning for a regular business meeting. So again, good evening to my colleagues on the board, respective town staff, those in attendance this evening, and certainly those watching at home. I'd like to start by introducing our board this evening via Zoom. We have Selectman Dan Chartrand. Selectman Chartrand, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chair.
And could you just state for the record that you are unable to attend the meeting physically, and whether or not you are alone in the room?
I am away from Exeter this evening, so I am unable to attend physically, but I am alone in my room.
Thank you for that. To my right, our Vice Chair, Selectwoman Molly Cowan. Good evening.
Hi, everyone.
To my left, our Clerk, Selectwoman Julie Gilman. Good evening.
Good evening.
Selectwoman Nancy Belanger. Good evening.
Good evening.
Our Town Manager, Mr. Rustine. Good evening.
Good evening.
We also have our Assistant Town Manager, Melissa Roy, with us. And is Joanna taking the minutes via video?
She is.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. And my name is Nico Papakostandis. We will start this evening with public comment. This is an opportunity for anybody who would like to make comment to the board to come up to the podium. We do ask if your comments are relative to a discussion item, you wait till that agenda item comes up. But if not, please come up to the podium, state your name and address. And I'll look to see if there's anybody on Zoom. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. There are no proclamations or recognitions this evening, so I would ask the board to take up the approval of the regular meeting minutes from February 12th. I'd first ask if there are any revisions or amendments.
Just one, Mr. Chair.
Okay,
On page 3, second paragraph to the bottom, from the bottom, it says, Ms. Belanger said this is an incredible tool. She's not sure about merging the inspection with the fire department. She values continuing education, so she agrees with not cutting training. I had also said that our budget process has supported training, so I think it's important to note that.
so Mr. Dean, if we could follow up with Joanna and just add a sentence that Ms. Belanger stated that our budget process supports training.
Yes, we will do that.
Great.
Thank you.
Any other revisions or amendments? Then seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the Town of Exeter Select Board regular meeting minutes of February 12th, 2024.
As amended, so
As
moved.
amended.
Second.
It's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry.
Aye.
To do a roll call.
Yeah, roll
Yes,
call.
roll call.
I'm sorry.
Yep. Roll
Roll
call
call
mine.
vote.
Madam Clerk?
Selectman Chartran.
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan.
Aye.
Selectwoman Belanger.
Aye.
And clerk says aye, Mr. Chair.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. And then for appointments, I would entertain a motion to appoint Rachel Ledoux to the alternate position on the Recreation Advisory Committee, the term to expire April 2024.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Selectman Chartran.
Used to that.
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan.
Aye.
Selectwoman Belanger.
Aye.
And clerk says aye, Mr. Chair.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0, and we welcome Rachel to the Rec Advisory Committee and thank her for volunteering. And Mr. Dean, you'll contact, your office will contact her in the next day or two?
Yes, we'll reach out.
Wonderful. Okay, let's jump right into our discussion items. The first order of business this evening is discussion on, or an update rather, on Pairpoint Park. Mr. Dean, do we have anybody from staff that wishes to lead this off?
So I think we can start by saying there has been some interest in a citizen group to address Pairpoint Park and be part of that process. We have had a chance to meet with Dave Short, who's here tonight. We met with him last Friday, had a conversation with David, also looked at the environmental services permit application that is in the packet tonight, so we've had a chance to review that. And I think at this stage, we're just ready for more discussion on what the next steps are.
Great. Selectman Chartrand, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to make it clear that because of some business relationships with a few of the folks that are involved with this project, I will be recusing myself on this matter.
Okay, thank you. So Joanna,
Thank
for the
you.
record, Selectman Chartrand is recusing himself from this discussion item. Russ, thank you for that introduction. We did meet with Dave Short about a week and a half ago with Dave Sharples. So Dave, I don't know if you wanted to come up and just give a summary on that update, and we can start the conversation.
Good evening. Dave Short, 1 Dewey Street. In broad strokes, a couple months ago, we were all here for the donation of that property at 23 Water Street for the purpose of constructing a park someday. At that time, it was proposed that it was put into the CIP, but as a low priority, and understandably, because there's a lot of big ticket items that are ahead of it. Afterwards, Keith and I got together and started talking about, the potential of what if we could get this thing moving without using any tax dollars? And it just kind of blossomed from there. We came up with a 2 to 3 phase approach to getting it done. One would be getting the site stabilized, the foundation hole filled, grading, a fence put up down below by the water, and then removal of the fence above that. This would then enable the landscape design process to start, along with fundraising and trying to see if we could search out some grants for this. And then the final phase would be the actual construction of the park. In the meantime, we've gotten together a pretty diverse group of people that are willing, if the board so chooses, to serve as volunteers on an ad hoc committee to move this thing forward. We got lucky. There's some real talent in this town. Connor Madison, who prepared the state permit, is an engineer over at GZA Engineering. He put that together. Russ Dean, Dave Sharples, both reviewed that, and from what I hear, I believe Connor did a very thorough job. We've also got some very good contractors available to perform the initial phase, primarily being Keith Whitehouse and Bell and Flynn. And then we also have Jen Martell, a landscape architect, who has offered to do the design work for the park. Like I said, which would be the second step, because right now what we're proposing is what I want to call create a blank slate, and with no negative impact upon the town whatsoever. It would open it up. It would probably, hopefully, get people excited about the resource we have there, because I think once this is finally fully implemented, it's going to be a heavily used area. But if we can get this first phase out of the way, then we can take our time and really think through the design process. Because it is going to take a while to get the funding together and all that sort of thing. And I've reached out to Greg Bisson, because we want to have a conduit to the select board so that the board is fully informed of everything going on. Nothing would take place, nobody would go rogue. And then, if there's other people that are looking to serve also on this group, that'd be great. But with the seasonality of Keith and Johnny Bell's work, they really, for them to volunteer what they've volunteered to do, they really need to do it in their off season. And fortunately or unfortunately with the weather, that off season's coming to an end pretty quick. So we would like to get approval for the state permit to be submitted. And then also, whatever form the board would like to see this entity take, we'd like to hear about that and, proceed according to the board's wishes.
Great, thank you. So we're interested to hear any other feedback from folks. I know there's some interested folks here. I'd like to hear from Mr. Sharples, but just for the record, this very exciting opportunity to accept this donation came rather hastily to the select board back in December, and with all parties cooperating, all boards and committees cooperating, we were able to really make this work despite the holiday season. So, from the get-go, it was always kind of a rush. But I'm not going to read the whole motion from the third and public hearing, and that was the motion to accept the donation. But I would like to read, and this is in our packet, so it is in the record right now for tonight's meeting. But in terms of what comes next after accepting the donation, the motion says that the select board would authorize the town manager to work with the town planner and other various town staff to develop a formal plan for 23 Water Street, for that plan to be placed as a capital improvement project in line behind other existing projects, and authorizing the town manager to move forward with developing a formal plan, and for the select board to consider all other fundraising donations of time. And lastly, once a formal plan is developed, the select board would consider organizing an ad hoc committee of staff and citizens of Exeter, again, appointed by the board. So that was in part the motion, the part of the motion that kicks off. So, it wasn't that it got to the back of the line. It was more or less like, we see this as a CIP, but it's got to be put in its place. But I think most importantly, for me, and we'll open it up for discussion, the organizing an ad hoc committee, typically that's done by the board.
Right.
And we had done that most recently for Police Stakeholders Commission, as an ad hoc committee for a finite project for a finite period of time. I know myself, I've received emails from 3 folks who are interested in being involved in this in somehow, some way. So my biggest pause right now is just making sure that we're including everybody that wants to be included to work on this. I do have some questions about moving forward that I'll hold off on because I think we'll want to hear from Mr. Sharples and certainly some of the other folks here that want to volunteer, and obviously open it up for discussion amongst the board. So though this is not a formal public hearing, I think we'll do this in public hearing style, where if there are other members of the public that wish to come up to speak to this or to offer whatever they want to offer, we could hear from the public first and then bring it back to the board.
Yep. Okay.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll probably call you back up, Dave. Anybody from the public wish to speak on this? Okay,
Oh, what the hell.
go ahead.
I mean, when in Rome. Laura Bricker, and I would like to be on this committee. Most of you know me. I'm very involved in the downtown. I'm pretty active with fundraising and publicity for a few very large annual events, the Exeter Lit Fest, the Evening with the Chefs fundraiser, and so this seemed like a natural for me to be involved with in terms of working with the people on the committee and also coming up with some ideas to fundraise and get the word out about what we're doing. And I think kind of where I'm coming from with this is it's really hard to be a volunteer in town. So thank you all for doing what you do. And it's hard to get people to volunteer and not burn out. So I think I'm coming from this we have a group of people who are very enthusiastic and have a lot of momentum and desire to get this done. And I think that's great. And we also have local businesses that are willing to donate goods and services at no cost to the town, which is also really exciting. So I just see this sort of as a win-win that, and I understand that there are other people that want to be involved, and that's great. I just hope we don't lose the opportunity to have this work done by getting caught up in sort of the process. And I understand the process. You all know my background. I have called out the process at times. But we do have a group that is very enthusiastic and ready to work. And we've got all sorts of people. Steve Hermans. Where is Steve as our consultant over there? And also, just people from all walks of life downtown that are people that are in the downtown all the time that really would like to see this beautified. So I would love to see this move forward. I understand there are some questions about the process, but I would hate to see us miss this opportunity.
Great, thank you. Dave Short, could I call you back up to the podium? Because I'm anticipating questions. Maybe if you could just walk the board through that first phase that you presented to us when we met. And the us, by the way, was the town manager, Rustine, assistant town manager, Melissa Roy, Greg Bisson, Park and Rec director, and our town planner, Dave Sharples. And I invited Mr. Short, as he's been the one that's been communicating, to just kind of walk through where we were before we put this on the agenda. So can you just take the board through that first phase that you described to us?
Yeah, again, it's getting it to a blank slate. We go in or I should say Keith would go in, remove and stockpile the granite that's in that hole, because that can definitely be utilized somewhere down the road. Bell and Flynn is going to come in and provide the fill to fill that cellar hole. Keith is going to have machinery down there to actually spread it. We're not going to have to go over the sidewalk or anything like that with trucks. Bell and Flynn is going to use their grade all to actually sit in a parking space and lift it over the fence and drop it in the hole. It'll be minimal disruption. It'll be a quick process. It's not going to disrupt business. I'm thinking optimistically a half day, maybe 2/3 of a day that parking spaces are going to get taken up there. But that's about it. So that's part of the first phase. And then the second part of and probably the most important part is getting a fence up down by the river to secure from people falling in. And we have gotten a couple quotes, Greg has, for chain link and for aluminum fencing. There's pros and cons to both. And then we get it seeded, and then once that seed is taken, the fence, the ugly fence along the sidewalk comes down. And people, even though it's not a finished product, they'll be able to safely walk out there, view the river, and hopefully get excited about where the thing's headed. So it's not a huge change. It's more of an accessibility change. And that's all we're looking for, and trying not to do anything that we're going to have to redo later. So,
Thank you. There are no other members of the public, and I'm not going to close it if you want to come up later, but Mrs. Ruffner?
Okay, I'm going to wait till you all talk.
Selectwoman Belanger?
I would like to hear from Mr. Sharples,
Okay.
if we could, what his thoughts are. You were part of this, I wasn't part of the original conversation, so I would really like to
Okay, yeah, I can just,
your input.
I mean, I'm happy to answer any questions you have. I can tell you my involvement so far. It's been fairly minimal.
Okay.
I just got asked to the meeting, and I heard what everyone just heard just now.
Okay.
And then I was asked by the town manager, he sent me that shoreline permit and said, can you look at this? And I looked at it through the lens of, is it a complete application? Does it answer all the questions? Does it, have all the materials needed to submit to the state? And that's what I did, and I concluded yes. I did not take the further step of, analysis beyond that.
Okay.
At this point, but I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone has.
There's a lot here. So my concern is we have a process, and we are way going beyond the process right now here. It wasn't suggested language that we were going to wait a while on this and see our options. So I feel like, first of all, we were rushed a little bit into accepting this property or not, and we did because we listened to people, and, okay, great, we accepted it, but with the understanding, we were going to take a good, strong look at this and not rush into anything. We don't know what is in there. I mean, doesn't an analysis have to be happen? I guess another question, if I could just follow up on that, is I'm a little concerned that we have a process on doing a committee that we tasked you to, the town manager to, and now I'm finding out that the town manager has been meeting with a committee that we haven't appointed. I understand it's the citizens getting together, and I so appreciate people stepping up and volunteering, but I am not comfortable with this feeling of possibly being rushed through another process. And now I'm hearing that some of the volunteer would have to happen sooner than later because it's their busy season. So That is where I'm at right now, just to put everything on the table. I don't know. I'm not feeling comfortable with how this is happening, as quick as it's happening and the way it's happening. So,
Okay.
I mean, I don't ever remember getting a letter from citizens as almost like a committee that's not appointed, and now I'm finding out that a department head was involved and you were involved.
With one meeting, which happened on the 16th of February.
Okay.
And the chair of the board was there as well, and so,
So that was the only meeting that you were involved in?
yeah, regarding this
Okay.
particular project, yes.
I thought Mr. Short said something and I misunderstood that.
Oh, then
Nope, I'm
I
fine.
don't think so.
Okay. We have a process for a reason. We dot our i's and cross our t's, and I hope we find a way to stick to that process.
Thank you. Selectwoman Gilman?
Well, I'm going to say I agree with Selectwoman Belanger about the process, but the question is, can we rush it as much as we got rushed into taking the property? I don't know what the time frame is that I really want to have a sense of what the total project is going to be before we start doing some work, but and so that would mean design and engineering before starting to mess with the site. I understand where the volunteers are coming from, but my only concern, and I think it's fine, let's just make it open, let people see what's going to be there. I do have a concern when you talk about accessibility, about disability, access for people with disabilities. Because just having we have a gate there at the top of at the sidewalk, and then what? Do people in a wheelchair just roll down the hill? Or, that needs to be engineered some. And, I really appreciate the enthusiasm lining up. Doing this shoreline protection application is great. And getting people lined up to do work that we don't have a total picture of what it is yet.
Love it.
And I just am uncomfortable doing little pieces. I'm uncomfortable doing small pieces.
Selectwoman Cowan?
I mean, I don't know, quite where to go with this. I remember I was not available to be at the meeting in December when we accepted the property. And I do think, I can see everybody's point here. I think it's really hard to get volunteers. I think we also have to meet the moment. And I think we also get in a lot of trouble if we rush the process for one good project. And we we have a process for a reason, right? And we are so dependent and grateful for volunteerism and work and donations. And I am almost certain, although I have not had any conversations with anybody, but that it is not dependent on doing it this minute, right? So like the contributions from folks I would imagine still be here. And if they're not, I mean, that's also the problem, right? Like if there are things that have been promised or things that have been committed to without the town, because I see you all shaking your heads. And so if we are talking about something that is dependent on us doing something that we haven't vetted or we haven't had full discussions with, that goes against what I am imagining. Town government can be a little bit glacial for a reason. And that is not always that is a frustrating thing, but it is not a bad thing. And so that's where I'm coming from with this.
I just want, that draft letter has the wrong address on it, just as an FYI.
Thank you. Dave Short, can I ask you to come up and describe what you described to us on February 16th about the filling in process, and then I want to ask Mr. Sharple some questions about that as well, please.
Specifically,
So my understanding, if I recall correctly, is that you're going to fill in that area?
the cellar hole.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And then we had a conversation about, and that's where maybe you can jump in, we had a conversation about filling it in versus cutting.
Right.
And I'm not a planner and I'm not an architect, so it was very educational for me because I listened to the difference. And I agree with you, I only want to do this once and do it the right way.
Right.
And we're in agreement on that. So maybe, Mr. Sharples, could you maybe describe the difference between the grading and the cutting? Because I thought I understood.
One more thing.
Oh, please, of course.
Is, you know, the goal behind, or the impetus behind this was to save tax dollars.
Of course.
And what we're proposing to do now is a very, very small part of what needs to take place down there. And then the real work starts after that, and that process is going to be slowed way down. That's when your design and engineering and all that sort of stuff takes place. So, yes, this does seem a little rushed, but I think it's a necessary, relatively minor first step that needs to be taken to, if we want to make this truly tax-free, to be able to go in that direction. So that's, and I apologize that it is kind of rushed, because I know that was a big concern of the board when the property was accepted. And, you know, I appreciate the fact the board got past that. And I guess we're just asking for a little forbearance one more time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Short.
So what exactly was the question you wanted me to?
You kind of presented, so I think I asked the same question on the 16th.
Yeah,
The difference between filling in and the cutting process that you
Yeah,
described.
yeah.
And then you were sort of familiar with the area.
Yep.
You'd taken a walk down there. I think you'd said you talked to a few people.
Yep.
And got some
Yep.
ideas. And so could you walk the board through that? Because I couldn't do that justice.
Sure, there's a variety of things you can do to that park, but what we haven't done yet is like the way maybe I'll answer you how I approach a project. I approach a project first, like what's the goal? And obviously we know the goal is to make it a public park. But then all sorts of questions come out of that. Like what kind of park? What amenities do you want to have? Do you want to have people sit? Do you want to have people sit and eat? Do you want to have, gardens? Do you want to have, accessibility? Do you want the entire area to be accessible? Do you want, you probably don't need a water feature because you got one. But, kind of what amenities do you want? What experience do you want people to have when you're there? You ask all these questions and then you kind of formulate a, ballpark of where you want to go. Also, how much are you going to spend, what's your budget, and those type of things. And then you can design the park. There's some existing site conditions, probably call them constraints, on the park that you have to deal with in the design, and that's foundations both on either side. You got foundations on either side on the east and west side of that parcel. One, there's a foundation that's someone's done some quick cement, quick set mortar on it. So I don't know what's going on. There's some dilapidated pavement along it, and then it drops down into a foundation. Another constraint is there's an old granite cellar foundation. So I don't know if that's going to just be kept in place and then you fill it.
I don't think you can touch that because it would undermine that sidewalk.
Yeah, I mean, you can, well, it depends on your plan. you can pretty much do anything with any type of money, but if you're doing, you got a sidewalk, another site constraint is the sidewalk goes down to the top of the retaining wall. It's about a 6-foot drop, just over 6 feet, and it's a run of about 65. Rise over run equals the slope. It's about 10%, just a little bit, 10% average grade from the sidewalk down to the top of that retaining wall. So if you're going to keep that, you got to somehow, a public park, usable, accessible, you want it about 2% or less. The area. I'm not saying it all has to be, but that is, so how do you do that? There's multiple ways to do that, but there's going to be, you could either fill it this way, but you got constraints on either side. You can cut down, to get it flat, and you still have constraints on either side. So you got a lot to deal with. So I guess it depends on what you're trying to accomplish and what you'd actually do. Like, is it a cut operation? Is it a fill operation? Is it a wash? I mean, do you do cut and fill? Do you do terracing? I don't know. I haven't gotten to the brainstorming workshop session about what the final goal of the project and what you're trying to accomplish there is. So I couldn't tell you what.
No, that answers the question.
Final grades would be or anything like that.
That's helpful.
That answers the question. Thank you.
Thanks.
I just wanted to respond real quick to Selectwoman Cowan's comment about people, if the offer isn't going to stand or whatever, with regard to the labor and the goods and services. The reason we're getting it now is because it's everybody's not busy season. So if we were going to get it again, we'd have to wait like another year. So I would just, again, like to strongly suggest, please, if we could get just this base level done now, then we can do what we always do and have a study committee, an engineering committee, and all the studies that we like to do in this town and go back to that sort of slow pace. But it just seems like getting to this base level is kind of a no-brainer. And I recognize it's coming in a different way, but at the same time, we're going to be a year out. And if we get that fence down, I will sell that fence and we will make money on that fence. I will auction it off for whatever purposes. But it would just really be a shame to see this not happen for a long period of time when we have the enthusiasm right now.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So what will happen?
With regard to getting a blank slate, with regard to getting this lot brought up to this base level, getting the ugly fence down, getting the cellar hole filled in, having these people that are offering to do the work and donate their time and donate their services, having this permit go to the Wetlands Board, and then the town can follow the process of doing all the long study of seeing what they want to do with this blank slate and getting public input. I feel like getting to that base level isn't really doing anything that crazy. That's just getting the lot safe so that you can see it. It's not building anything there. It's not constructing anything there. It's just getting to a starting point where then when you go out to raise money, people can see what's there and maybe be a little more apt to jump on the bandwagon of donating money. I mean, that's just how I sort of see it.
I understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what will happen? So
What do you mean, what will happen?
If we agree to let the volunteers do their work.
Right.
And then I understood everything you just said.
Yeah.
But then what will happen in the meantime? What will you have there?
What do you mean, what will we have? I guess I'm not understanding your question.
You're going to
Nico.
have something filled in, and you're still going to have fences up because there's nothing there.
So you're going to have the fence along, if I'm understanding correctly, the wooden fence along the roadway is going to be taken down, hopefully.
No, I understand that, but what will be there for folks while?
Green grass and open space. You can walk out and see the river, and you can see maybe a sign that says, future spot of the Pairpoint Park or something, just so that people can see that that's what's coming there.
So that's why I asked the question. 'Cause I'm figuring, filling in, putting up, taking the fence down, putting up the other fence.
Right. I didn't understand what you were saying. So
then
having
we're also planting grass.
Well, I don't know if we're planting grass.
Well, that's what I'm asking. I just want to know what's going to be there.
That's a question for those people. I just was seeing it as like we're getting this to like a blank slate of a place that we can start at so that,
Oh, no, I understand. I understand that,
yeah.
but I'm just wondering, are people going to use it?
That's my question.
are you expecting people to use it right away as soon as?
And what's going to be there to use? I guess that's what I'm getting at.
It's just visibility, I think,
It's an
that
empty
that you
lot.
can see it, that it's there, and it's no longer looking like the missing tooth eyesore of Water Street. It's looking like the work in progress. Maybe we're getting a filling and a crown section of Water Street, like, it's next stage, 2.0 or something. Yeah.
Mr.
I
Dean, have
don't
we
know,
talked
maybe
to...
they could address what's going on.
Have we talked to Primex about this? Primex, by the way, is...
We had a conversation with Primex when the property was in the process of being donated to the town, so we have had one conversation with them. They did do a site visit as well, so they've been on the site. We haven't had any subsequent talks since the property was donated, other than to put it on the town's rolls.
Can I ask you a question? Mr. Sharples? So would that be safe for folks?
What?
I guess I'm still not understanding I understand what Phase 1 is, but I don't understand what it would be used for. It sounds like we're filling in, so I'm asking, is that, from a town planner's perspective,
I'd have a couple of questions, like, I'd like to see I don't know where the property lines are on either side. There's some dilapidated pavement that comes off the foundation to the west. What does that transition look like? Is that pavement going to be removed? Is some of that pavement going to remain? I don't know. I don't know what that transition. Also, the hole gets filled on the shoreland permit. There's about 900 square feet of fill. Beyond that, beyond where it's shown on the fill, there's some issues. It's about 2/3 of the way down to the water they're proposing to fill in that plan. The last third, there's some concrete blocks, there's a couple of dips, there's some granite, there's some pieces, there's some holes, there's a couple of pipes sticking out of the ground, there's a broken valve cover, so I just, there's a little bit, there's more things to do beyond that. I'm not saying there's much, but you'd probably want something smooth if you want people to walk on it. Suggest smoothing it out so it would be a little bit beyond what that shoreland is. And down by the retaining wall, there's kind of a little hole right at the 90-degree corner. There's a little bit of a hole there. So you probably want to do some stuff and understand what the transitions are between the two properties on either side.
okay, thank you.
Sorry.
As far as the, I know the concrete you're talking about, it's to the Cornicello side. Chocolatier side, correct? Yeah, down at the bottom, yeah. The intent there was to take the fence across the top of the wall. They're going to core the top of the wall, put the fence posts right into it. And then once we reach that area where those blocks are that Mr. Sharples was talking about, we're going to make a return and come back up towards Water Street, get past those blocks, and then return over towards the Chocolatier.
All these.
Yeah, we don't want people getting to those.
You're putting the fence this way.
Yes,
Up.
yeah, because that's a mess over there.
But that's the town paying for that. No. Aren't
No,
we paying for the fence?
well, it's coming in from impact fees,
Well, true, but still town funding.
but it's precisely what impact fees are for.
But you're leaving that there?
Oh,
Wouldn't you
no,
want-
that's
all
gonna
this
get,
stuff?
that's gonna get cleaned up, but not.
The fence is on this side of all this stuff?
Yes,
Okay.
but, get the granite out of there, clean that up. But, you're starting to mess with their foundation if you start to.
Well, that's
mess
what
with
I'm
those blocks.
so concerned about the
Yeah,
transition.
so I wouldn't let them
Okay.
touch those. Yeah. So, I don't know where I was, but, anyways, as far as, potential hazards like that to people or property, we've kind of already taken that into account. And then over on the Cornicello side, there is one granite block that needs to either be raised or replaced so that there's no room underneath the fence. And after that, it's a completely safe environment down there, unless somebody elects to scale the fence, but then what are you going to do about that? Sorry.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
I'm serious.
Mr.
I'm-
Short?
Yes.
Oh.
What is the time frame we're talking about? How quick does this have to get done with everyone's schedule?
Well, ideally, once the permit by notification is submitted to the state, supposedly it's a 5 business day turnaround. And so optimistically, within the next 2 weeks, it'd be nice. I know, that's fast. But it's, they're making a pretty significant donation. And
I appreciate that. I really do.
and it's also, the whole process is going to slow down to everybody's satisfaction as soon as this one small step can take place.
I guess where I'm troubled is that we're hearing what the project is verbally, and that's it. And that's why there's been these questions about,
Right,
what's
Concerns.
going on, and concerns. When you
Yeah.
talk about there's broken valves and pipes in there, that's a different story than
Yeah.
just saying, oh, let's go grade it and make it
Yeah.
look nice while we wait.
Yeah.
Well,
Organize it.
That's why there's going to be a couple quality contractors down there working. That it's going to before that upper fence goes anywhere. It's going to have, what gets done down below is going to have to meet the satisfaction of the town. It's not, that fence, the lower fence goes in, fill goes in, the upper fence doesn't just immediately come down. That has to come when we get the say-so from the board. And as far as how this group was formed, I guess it's not so much that we've gone ahead and formed our own committee. What we're doing is offering to volunteer our services.
But-
And then-
but that's
and
what's
then the board-
happened.
And then the board can form the committee to their specifications.
Yeah, what makes me uncomfortable is there's been giant leaps over the process and the way it's supposed to be done. So if we fill in, you're saying, I am still concerned. I appreciate it, and I just hope people don't think I don't. It's that a committee gets formed when the select board forms the committee, and then there are applications and people get assigned to them, right? Appointed to them. So, but now we're talking about sending out a letter that's going to have a 5-day and then 2 weeks, and the town is responsible for this. So again, it's great we have volunteers, professional volunteers, but it's the town who is ultimately responsible.
We are
So,
the town, right?
But it's still not, you're 10 people of the town. We have 16,000 people here. I just,
When,
Making sure we,
no.
well, of course you are. I would never say otherwise.
When
But,
Selectwoman Belanger's referring to the town, this is the responsibility of the town, she's talking about the
the municipality. Thank you.
administration.
Well, I think
Thank you.
everybody from this group that has indicated they're willing to volunteer would be more than happy to put in a submission to be appointed to a committee. That
Yeah, it will take about a month. I mean, we haven't done the mission, we haven't done, okay, I'm just gonna kind of stop here, but, this is no disrespect to anyone who's trying to do this, but I think that we're missing the point of when we accepted the property, the conditions, the terms, and now, again, we're being asked to rush something in like a 2-week turnaround time frame. So,
We have somebody on Zoom who's patiently had their hand up. Mr. Ruffner?
I can't get up.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, good evening. Could you state your name and address for the record, please?
Sure. Scott Ruffner, 11 Hall Place in Exeter. I couldn't be there this evening, but I'm part of the group that's been helping to push this forward. And I guess I'm just a little confused on, the difference between ad hoc committees, regular committees. In my experience, there was a committee that was put together that was ad hoc for the town hall initiative that was very similar, where there was a lot of momentum pushing forward toward a common goal. And this ad hoc committee was put together by, quote unquote, the town that everybody on the board keeps referencing. And there really didn't seem to be any pushback or concern for that initiative. And that's a group that had met, and it certainly wasn't open to anyone that wanted to be involved or anyone that, wanted to put in an application. It was an ad hoc committee. And that ad hoc committee really hasn't gotten much done. It's fizzled out. And a lot of us that are really passionate about that project definitely have some frustration about it. So I'm just confused as to where oftentimes the board is very prone to say we need volunteers, we need help, we need backing. Where is everybody? And then now that people are coming forward and are ready to do this and get it done, there's sort of this different viewpoint that hold on, this is too much, too quick. So, I'm curious as to if someone can explain the difference between a regular town committee and an ad hoc committee, and where this group of people stand as far as that goes.
Do you want to go first?
Sure. As to the town hall committee, that was a project that was described and put out an RFP for, or got a grant to hire an architecture firm to study the accessibility issues and the other concerns that we've heard, typically annually, monthly from users of the town hall, and also came up with the safety inspection that we had from the Department of Labor. The group that got put together was at the invitation of myself and the architect and the assistant town manager, and that was to get preliminary input. It wasn't designing anything. It wasn't volunteering to build something. It was input of what are the needs, because of the users. We want to primarily satisfy the users. Now, that you may feel that that's dropped off, but the architect has had work to do, to come up with what can be changed without damage to the town hall, what are suggested changes to make the space more useful to all of the different user groups that we heard from. And that was something that was called together. The people in that group are not going to be making the final decision on anything that's done there. It'll go to the general public once actually probably have another meeting with that specific user group to explain why we can't satisfy everything. And then we'll start talking about it in the public. But I put it right out there at the time that this is at least a 2-year project. And even that, given that, we don't know at all what we're going to do yet. And this committee, volunteers too, gave us the mission statement, which is perfectly acceptable. We know what your mission is, and perhaps we agree with it. But we're also being given instructions, and that's I think what people are objecting to.
Thank you for the town hall comment, and I have a slightly different take, though it's somewhat parallel. And I think to answer your question directly, Mr. Ruffner, what I think we spoke about December 28th, or the idea that this board had, was to put together an ad hoc committee. The difference between a committee and a board, we have all kinds of advisory committees that support staff, right? The basis of how this town runs is our volunteers. And our volunteers on our committees and our advisory committees work with staff, work with the town manager's office, and work with the select board ongoing. This is a finite project. So I made the analogy, it's not apples to apples, it's apples to oranges, but it was similar to the Police Stakeholders Commission, where we interviewed a bunch of folks that wanted to volunteer to serve on an ad hoc committee for one purpose. And there was going to be a finite period of time in which they were going to work, and then they were going to bring their proposal and their suggestion to the select board, which they did. and then the committee dissolved, their work was done. And certainly that's what I was envisioning for this particular project. And as I said, the minute this hit the newspaper and the minute the select board voted to accept this incredibly generous donation, this incredible gift to the town, this wonderful piece of property that is someday, hopefully very soon, going to be able to enjoyed by everybody in the town and outside of the town. And hopefully people from outside of the town will hear how wonderful it is, and they'll come and they'll enjoy it, and they'll walk down Water Street, and they'll go into our businesses, and they'll go into our restaurants. But I wanted to see a committee get put together like we put together other committees, where folks apply to the select board, we interview folks, and we try to get a diverse and inclusive bunch of people who bring something different to the table and put together a plan. And so I think hopefully that answers your question. Instead, we got this letter that's in our packet from some of the pillars of our community, frankly. Some of the stewards of our community. People who are active, people who are generous, not only with their time and with their money. People that this board and this town can rely on time and time again. It's an impressive group of people. They're our friends, they're our neighbors, they're our community. But it was a letter to the select board, literally less than a month after we accepted the donation, with, here's the committee we put together, and here's what we're going to do. What bothered me most, though, was, so we have a process that deals with committees, but we also have a process with utilizing staff. And unfortunately, one of our department heads got put into a compromising situation, in my opinion, by being brought in without having gone through the town manager's office. Now, I envision that someday Mr. Bisson and his department are going to overlook this park. But he doesn't know anything about this yet. And I'm sorry, Mr. Bisson, that you were put in that position, because, frankly, folks should have gone to the town manager before they included you in a committee that's not a town committee. I'm not going to be sorry for not giving this our immediate attention, because in January and February, that's our busy season. We have our budget hearing in January. We have our deliberative session. And in between that time, we're working to help people understand the warrant articles for our election March 12th. And we've got some pretty important warrant articles on the warrant this year. And I'm not minimizing 23 Water Street. I'm not. I'm excited for this. I'm appreciative that we have this gift. But because we didn't jump right on it and forming a committee because we were getting ready for our town election, to pass our budget, to hopefully pass a public safety building, Planet Playground. We've also been working for volunteers who brought forth the citizens petition. We've been working on getting a definite answer on the Rugg property. So this is our busy season, January and February. I don't think we should ever not accept donations of time, of resources, and of money. And I want to thank you for listening to me, and I'm not filibustering. I'm thankful, but I'm very frustrated because I don't know what to do. Okay? I'm looking at this row of people who I know, people who I know personally, because we live in a small town. We're friendly, we're neighbors, and it's incredibly frustrating to have to make a decision because folks want to do something nice for the town, but we're elected to look out and do what's best for the entire town when it's the best time to do it, and following the process and following the procedures that we didn't set. They're town procedures. So I'm not asking questions for the sake of asking questions. I'm trying to understand, if we accept this first donation, what is it that we're getting? What is it that's going to happen? And I wasn't being a wise guy with you. I want to know, what is it? And the thing is that nobody knows because there's no plan. There's no plan. So, Mr. Ruffner, you still have your hand up, and I'd like to have you speak if you still have a question or comment.
I'm sorry, it was just still up from before. I'm going to hit the button now. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I didn't want to ignore you. Mrs. Ruffner, I think Mr. Ruffner's done if you wanted to speak.
Steve demoted me, so
Okay.
I keep getting demoted.
I didn't know that was possible.
I'm Steve Hermans. I live at 21 Forest Street. I've been part of this group. I'm going to avoid using the word committee. I don't think there's any request to authorize this committee to do anything. It's just a group of people that wants to see this happen. It seems like there should be a way to receive these offers of donated services to stabilize the site, make it safe, and make it the blank slate that Dave Short referred to, so that people will have a better way to understand what's at stake with this park. And it's too bad that the offers are time limited, but they are. And it seems like the way to do that is the board and the town manager could decide which town employee should be responsible for dealing with the contractors who are going to donate those services to achieve the objectives of stabilizing the site, installing the fence along the river wall to make sure it's safe, and creating this blank slate at no cost to the town, other than the use of the impact fees for the fence, if that's the plan. It just seems that is a fairly simple step, and I don't see the risk to the town of taking that step.
Well, you said two things in there. You're assuming the use of the impact fees, which we have to approve using. So we need a little bit more information about what's going to happen with those fees. I mean, verbally, it's all great. It sounds good. Everybody seems to know what they're doing, what they want to do, and can do it quickly. But you're going to have to wait another 2 weeks for us to decide on using the impact fees if they're indeed proposed by the Director of Parks and Recreation. And the other thing was a staff person. You want to have a staff person to coordinate. Well, that's budgeted time already. So it's hard enough to get staff to support some of our committees, and now we're asking for someone else. We don't know who yet. I'm just trying to explain to you that, assigning a staff member to coordinate with town services isn't as easy as we'd like it to be.
But isn't it essential? I mean, the board's not going to do it.
No, it is essential, but we have to decide who's the appropriate person.
Okay.
I have a thought, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, sir.
All right.
Could you walk through for us, the board and the public, what typically happens when the town either purchases a piece of land or acquires a piece of land through a donation, and what the process would be moving forward with the plan, but more importantly, who you would see as the staff assigned to work with the group as a conduit to you and us, the board?
Well, in this particular situation where it's proposed to be a park, I would think that the town planner would have involvement, as well as the Parks and Recreation Director. So from a staff perspective, that's who I would see there. The other thing I wanted to point out is that the board definitely has to be the entity that accepts donations. So any of these services that are being talked about, that it is up to the select board to decide whether or not to accept those. But that's to your question, Mr. Chairman, that's from a staff perspective, that's who I would see. And when we typically accept land, and it's not a very typical situation. So I'm trying to think of the last land donation that we accepted, and mainly it's conservation land and easements. So what we do in that instance is we turn it over to Kristen Murphy, our Conservation and Sustainability Planner, to administer with the Conservation Commission. And that's typically what happens in that instance.
But
Go
can I
ahead.
just,
Yep.
can you elaborate? Stewart Park. How did that happen? We took a piece of land that the town had. Was there a design process? Was there an engineering process? I don't know. I'm not.
Yeah, Stewart Park was before my time. It was in the
Okay.
in the 90s, so I wasn't.
I know it
The
was
Chamber of
before
Commerce.
that.
The Chamber of Commerce was involved in that particular
Okay.
effort.
Can you give me an example of anything that's similar to this? Founders Park?
Founders Park, again, that's before my time, so
Okay,
we'd have to do some research.
I'm trying.
Yeah.
Of course.
I thought of so many things sitting here all this time. Hi, Florence Ruffner, 5 Pine Street. I don't know where to start. As far as the whole thing, all of these things being donated, we all know how much Keith Whitehouse does for the town. He contributes a lot of time and his resources. Bell and Flynn is used by the town. How many years has this hole been there? 35 years, possibly? Okay. So I can't figure out what the problem is if these people that we already use and we hire, and they're very competent, if they can fill in the hole. They're not saying they're going to finish everything, to the end. And if you don't want to use the resources from Parks and Rec for the fence, can't we just fence along the sidewalk and keep it like that? But get the hole filled in at least till we know what's going to happen. But to have these resources to save the taxpayers money, and it's a lot of money. I don't know. Do you know what we're saving?
That'd be just for the whole.
Probably, what, $10,000?
No, probably 5.
Oh, let's make it 10. But I don't understand, and I keep hearing the word process, but it's a hole. It's been there for 35 years. It's unsightly. It's a foundation hole. And if they're going to fill that in, I just don't understand what the issue is. Nobody says they're going to go in and decide how the park's going to be done. And talking with everyone about what we'd like to see happen, I've never met with any of you all. I'm not involved in a committee to come meet with you. We've just all been talking because we'd like to see something happen. And Nancy and Elliot were so generous to give this park to the town. So I just don't understand it. To me, it's just getting all blown out of proportion. And talking about an ad hoc committee, this is either my 6th or 7th year, I don't even know how many years, with the Memorial Day Parade. Julie used to be our select board rep, and then we became an ad hoc committee. I don't come and ask who's on the committee. I don't even have meetings. I send emails and say, can you do this, this, and this? And people are kind enough to help, and it's difficult to get people to commit to things like that.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Sure.
For comparison, the Memorial Day Parade Committee started with appointed people.
No, I understand
Started
that.
dropping
I was there in the beginning. Yeah.
Right, but started dropping off, and then you helpfully got new people to come on and take the spaces, but we never heard about that. We don't know who's on the committee.
Well, no one's ever asked me. I mean, I was told you can have an ad hoc committee, and I've organized it. It happens, and no one's come to me and said, "Oh, what are you doing?" It happens. It works, and
we budget money for it.
Right.
correct.
So we shouldn't be doing
And
it.
you get all my receipts. Everybody knows exactly where every
Yeah,
penny
no,
goes.
I'm not going down that road.
And
Yeah.
so,
And we do have a couple of committees, again, that are not formally designated by the select board. The Holiday Parade Group is another group that works more on a volunteer basis and isn't formally designated by the select board. So there are examples of that around.
yeah, I mean, and I typically, if I have one meeting to organize the whole thing, that's unusual. I just send out emails for people who've helped and solicit new people coming into town. I say, oh, you're new. Guess what you're going to do this year? And it all comes together. It works nicely.
Right.
So I guess there's different variations of ad hoc, but it's worked just fine. And I am very much in support of filling up the hole. And if you don't want to do the fence on the river, keep a fence on the sidewalk, but at least the hole is gone.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Please. But before you do, Mr. Whitehouse, we have said from the first public hearing, this is a very generous donation. And we said that after we accepted it and after we thanked the donors. So we have never, ever questioned the generosity of this donation, nor have we questioned how valuable and how generous our volunteers are. And Mr. Whitehouse, for years, you have volunteered and done things for this town that people don't even know that you've done. And we're very appreciative of that. So we are not thanking you. So with that, sir, please.
I appreciate that. Keith Whitehouse, West Side Drive. I just want to assure everybody that I'll make that safe. Make it safe. And that is what we'll do. We'll make that safe as it can be. And we'll do our very best to make sure that happens. And talking to Mr. Sharples tonight, it'd be nice to have him come down, take a look, and Greg or anybody that says, hey, we can tighten this up, tighten that up, and we'll make it safe. And that's my guarantee.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Dean, what's the deadline on this? On this application?
On this letter?
No, on the app, the
Shoreline
the
permit.
shoreline.
Yeah, that's what I was sorry.
Is there a deadline on that?
The deadline for submittal?
Yes.
I don't believe there is one.
Good evening.
Nancy Phillips, Water Street. Just wanted to segue into Keith's comments about safety and talk a little bit about that site. I actually didn't realize how offensive our lovely fence was, but I've heard about it from everybody in town, and you would be surprised at the things that happen behind that fence. Sometimes it's secured, sometimes it's not. Sometimes there's drunken kids in the hole. Sometimes there's all sorts of things being thrown into the river. So it's not really in its safest form as we speak, and I think that it would be a huge improvement, especially in the area of safety, to remove aesthetically the fence, let people see the river, the grading, they can walk down, it will be beautifully grassed. There is a path along the border of Cornicello. So I think that no matter what, in terms of what would be actually probably better for the town's insurance policy and for the long-term goals, it would be a big plus.
Okay, thank you. And I've always liked the fence.
Buy a piece. It grew. Okay, can I?
Yeah.
I always feel like I'm playing devil's advocate all night here. So this is a couple of things. So we're saving. It's about $5,000, Mr. Short. I think you said, to fill in the hole. So if we don't know what we want to do with this property, and we might put a fence along the river, and we might put a fence along the sidewalk. If we put it along the sidewalk, it wouldn't be accessible, so we're filling in a hole. And what if we have a design and it's going to be a step down or something? Isn't it going to cost us money to take the fill back out without knowing what the design is, or am I being silly here?
Do the ADA regulations. I don't think you're going to be doing too much stepping.
Wouldn't that be an ADA actual thing, though,
Well, that's got to be a ramp.
Pardon me?
It's got to be a ramp.
Right. Well, that's what I mean by stepping down a ramp, whatever, apparently.
Well, and that's part of where Jen Martell's expertise lies. She works with parks all the time. And ADA is a very complex set of regulations.
They are.
And different applications require different grades and slopes and all that sort of thing. So I think once she has time to work on it, then all that can be figured out. But I don't see, in my eyes, I don't see a lot of fill coming out of there.
Okay, thank you.
No.
So timing is everything. We typically meet every other Monday. but because of the election, the town election on March 12th, we are meeting next Monday. I don't want to waste people's time, so I'm going to throw out some ideas. But it's up to the board. I mean, you know, if there's no deadline on this application, we can certainly wait a week. Mr. Bisson would have a week to work up impact fees and exactly what the fencing would cost, because regardless of whether or not you all came tonight, that was one of the things when we closed on December 29th, Mr. Bisson was already working on fencing because that was a priority first and foremost. So, you know, that is something that is going to come out of his impact fees. That was never questioned. It's just a matter of what can he get, what's safe, and how much is it going to be. So can you come up with something in a week?
I already have it.
It's just, but it's on a napkin right now. Can you bring it in a memo?
I'll put it in
Okay.
the memo, yeah.
Okay. This application can wait a week. You're all welcome to come back. We like to have a full Novak room, but if between all of you, if you want to pick one or two people to come back, maybe with something, a picture, a design, because what I'm thinking is consideration of, and I think it still falls into your timeline in Bell and Flynn. It's tight, but we're trying to work here, right? To the satisfaction of the entire board, if we could have something either in words or in pictures as to, you know, what you're proposing for filling in, and if we were to take that first step and accept the generous donation from Mr. Whitehouse and his company and Bell and Flynn, what if we fill it in, fence it, so that there's no access to it, people can see it, and then come back to the table and put together a committee and just start talking about a plan rather than little by little by little. Does that make any sense to folks?
Yes.
And that could still work into your timeline of doing the work that you want to do.
The one thing I would ask, because I do think that makes sense, but the one thing I would ask, because that permit is good for 5 years. And that is going to be a limiting factor as time goes on. So I don't see any harm in submitting that.
Oh, that's part of what I was, waiting a week.
Submitting it
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
So submitting it now, if possible, tomorrow. And then if it's.
Can we wait a week? I mean, 5 years, it's what's a week? Just so we're doing it all at once.
Okay, I'm just concerned about the weather. I hate to impose on guys like.
No, I understand. That's why you're all here. I'm asking whether that 1 week, and I know it's tight, and I know that whatever winter we had seems to be gone. That just jinxed us.
Yeah, we're going to get 2 feet of snow.
But I also would like to know, because the other thing that we get is we get the phone calls and we get the emails when the street is closed or partially closed or the businesses lose their spaces. So if we could have some sort of a better idea of what we can go, because we're going to preempt and we're going to tell folks that are going to be affected. You know, we'd like to give people a heads up that on this day, I think that's fair.
Yeah, traffic control.
Yeah.
Yeah, and every effort will be made to limit the impact, and you've got somebody who's spent weeks of his life working downtown and trying to work around, pedestrian impacts and stuff like that. So that's a pretty good resource there. Just Johnny's baseline knowledge.
So can we do that? Can we, and again, everybody's welcome, it's a public meeting, and we love seeing a packed Novak room, but if we could have somebody come back next Monday, we have a light agenda, I believe. Let's just come back and dot some i's and cross some t's, unless there's opposition from the board. I'm just throwing out a compromise to try to move this.
The thing that I'm really also interested in doing is I understand that some people think that this is a no-brainer, and also it would be really helpful to have our staff, work with folks to say, okay, Here's what's being done. Here's why. So that we are able to articulate, actually, here was the accelerated process. Here's the timeline. Here's the accelerated process. Here is what we envision as the process to, set up a committee and interview and do all of the things that we would normally do for a exciting new project like this, like we had with the Police Stakeholders Commission. But I do think, it is helpful to have an understanding for me. Okay, the impact fees. Here is the donated labor. Here's what it's going to mean. Here's why we're doing this. All of those things sort of laid out in a process, in a scope of work, like we would do for anything else, so that it doesn't feel like all of these decisions are being made and we are made to feel, pressured, truly, when I don't know that that's anybody's intent. I think everybody has the best intent here. We have generous contributions. We have, care and feeding of the town and a deep appreciation for all of the work that happens and goes into this. And I don't want it to feel like anybody from any side of this room is skipping corners or is, doing something without putting pen to paper with an actual plan. So that would be my charge, because I think you're right. I totally agree. And I think you all are right. I completely agree. And I think that we can compromise and come together and have something, again, that feels rushed, with the understanding that sometimes things happen, right? Sometimes it just, the opportunity presents itself and you jump. So I'm willing to make that leap. Yeah. But I also think that we can have a good plan that we can all point to, all of us can point to. This was why we did this.
Yes, I agree. Thank you.
So, because you're not going to be around, a lot of things you're missing. We'll get to that later. But if we could have, I think, and you're the town manager, so my suggestion is that the town planner is intimately involved in this, particularly in the beginning process. With
looks like he might already be.
Yeah.
With
Yes.
Mr. Bisson.
Planning.
Correct.
You know what you need to do for next week.
Primex?
We have.
You can talk to or have somebody speak with Primex,
Yes.
and then Dave or Keith. I'm just looking at you two because you've been communicating. You'll have something to bring back. That's something we can look
I
at.
was just about to ask Dave if it would be possible for him to give us kind of an outline summarizing the particular questions that you have, that he has, that need
Brilliant.
specific answers.
Yep, brilliant.
I'd suggest a site visit, like on-site.
Yeah, sure.
That's the easiest way to do it.
Perfect.
But
Microphone.
I don't want to miss any concerns.
And we're comfortable in the capable hands of over here. So,
Sounds good.
and we come back Monday, we talk this through, we move forward hopefully, and then phase 2 involves a more formalized process, forming of a committee.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Is everyone satisfied?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Nice to see you all.
Come back next week.
Not that we don't want to stay, but
Yeah, right. Out of there.
should have said that an hour and a half.
Thanks, Morris.
So
Yeah.
you're going to have somebody fix that letter?
Thank you, Dave.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes. Town planner will be main contact.
The date, the address?
And the address,
Yeah,
yes.
it's wrong.
Correct.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Yes.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Let's enjoy your vacation.
Yeah, thanks, Dave.
So our next agenda item came about when Selectwoman Belanger shared with me a memo, I think that might have come from the planning board or during the planning
did.
board. And it was absolutely fantastic news. And the news was so good that I asked, knowing you'd be here, Mr. Sharples, I asked Mr. Dean to have you speak to this. It's regarding our master plan and just how much we have accomplished. And I think the folks need to know at home that are watching this, this is just absolutely great news. So with that, sir.
Great, thank you. Thank you for having me. Thanks to being able to highlight what we've done with the 2018 master plan. And I'll back up a little bit. I had come up with a thought, I don't know, a lot of years ago at a different community, and I was looking at master plans, and there's 9 3-ring binders, and there's 878 recommendations across those 3-ring binders, and one was a chapter on economic development, one was a chapter on natural resource, one was a chapter on land use, one was a chapter on recreation, and then everyone adopted and updated them differently as money allowed. So, the natural resource chapter was, a year old, but the economic development chapter was 20 years old. Land use chapter was 5 years old. So it was like, how do we do it better? And I worked with the Horsley Witten group, and I was like, why don't we kind of distill down, it's got to have the right community, it's got to be in a position where there's been a lot done, there's an established land use pattern and so forth, and which Exeter was perfect for. And trying to create a document that's very succinct, covers everything, because economic development is related to natural resources, and natural resources is directly related to land use, so everything's kind of together. But then get a vision, make a compact document, easy to understand, and then specific action items to meet those goals. And instead of kind of these broad, 884, make them succinct. And we ended up in 2018, we went through the process, very pleased with the input in Exeter. I've never seen engagement like that in any other community I've worked in. And we had, over several hundred people show up to the master plan meeting at the high school. It was just great to see. And we had 1,000 people involved in public input via survey, email, letter, in person, through that process. So I was very thankful of the result. It was a pretty good master plan. I thought it was a great result, and it had 67 specific action items, and they were organized in your packet. They were organized in a kind of an Excel spreadsheet where you had the task, what you're supposed to do, and then you had the town lead, you had the town support. So it laid it out, what the time frame was, whether it's short-term, mid-term, long-term. So it was great for me, because it was just basically, this is what I beyond my day-to-day work for reviewing site plan reviews, subdivision, various applications, responding to public inquiries. Anytime I had time to do an separate initiative for the town, this was a guideline. This is just a guideline. I open it up. What do we need to do? So it was great for me. It was great for others. So then we worked through it. The town manager asked me to complete an analysis, and I had completed one before internally in 2021. But he asked me to update it, and I updated it recently. And I looked at I used 3 categories to define the status of each of the 67 tasks. And I chose that the item was either completed, being worked on, or work has not begun. For the sake of this analysis, completed and worked on a lot of times are the same, because there are ongoing efforts, like to provide wraparound services for meetings. We've done that. That's ongoing. You can't say it's completed. It's being worked on, because it keeps going. So there's a lot of those that are ongoing. But what I found was the summary. There's a total of 67 specific action items in the master plan. 66 of them are either completed or being worked on. So all but one hasn't started, and the only one that work has not begun is the complete street study, which has been in the CIP since the master plan, but because of other plans like the bike and ped plan that was also in this is being done now. It's in a queue, and it's up for funding in 2025. So I will be bringing that forward. It was already in the CIP last year, so it'll be hopefully coming up for funding next year. And once that's begun, it's pretty much, we've accomplished everything in the master plan. There's some tasks that are a little broader where you could do more than we've done, potentially. But for the sake of analysis, it's pretty much a completed document. And really just highlight it was a completely collaborative effort. There's no way I'm not sitting here saying, I couldn't. I mean, a handful of them, but not without the help of the engaged residents, the planning board, the facilities committee, the conservation commission, the historic district, like everybody, select board, town manager, town administration, fire, police, everybody was involved. Rec, every department. I don't want to leave anybody out. Economic development, building. I mean, you name it. Everybody was involved in this, and it was a collaborative effort. So the result is that probably going to need to update our master plan sooner rather than later. I did anticipate that and put it in the CIP last year. I didn't think we had done everything except one last year when I put it in there, and I put it for 2028, but at some point we might need to, adjust that as funding allows.
Okay.
So
Terrific.
just want to say, thanks to everyone involved, and everyone stayed focused and got it done. So very pleased with the outcome.
I think this is incredibly tremendous, and again, as you said, it's a tribute really to not only you, but all of our departments, our staff, our residents, and our volunteers. And this is great news.
Yeah.
Exciting news.
So I didn't bring my CIP booklet with me. Dave, what's an estimated or guesstimate of updating the master plan?
Well, last time it was 50,000.
Mm-hmm.
So I would think it would be somewhere around there. I'd have to check with a few consultants to see what the
going rate
market's
is.
done and
Yeah.
what the going rate
Yeah.
is, and for that. But I wouldn't see it being that, be around the ballpark.
Okay, so it's really not questions for Dave, but I do want to point out a few things because we went through this with the planning board. So we all, I'm sure, understand this, but the master plan really is interconnected it interconnects everything, right? The planning board refers to it a lot when they're doing their deliberations, and one of the things in the Keegan report, page 80, one of the questions was, what does Exeter want to grow? So when I read that in Mr. Keegan's report, one of my first thoughts was, should we consider moving the updated master plan up? Because it was done in 2018. I think it's time, so something to consider to reevaluate when that might take place. So, and of course, Mr. Sharple's educational series through the planning board has also really showed us how things are really interconnected, and hopefully sometime soon we'll see that with Exeter TV, the process, that project for the public to see. So, thank you.
Selectwoman Gilman.
No, I think that it's great that to have this exercise made, or the results of the exercise that people are carrying around, that they can, rather than just be an internal document to keep, track of what we've, the townspeople have said this is what we want to see. Now have this be out here to show people this is what you wanted and this has been done. So I'm impressed that, these all show things that involve town personnel, but rely an awful lot on the volunteers that come to the boards and commissions that are present in this document. So, thank you.
Thank you. Selectman Chartrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I most definitely do not want to recuse myself on this item. One of the 2 or 3 biggest highlights of my first 6 years on the select board was participating in the master plan process that our town planner and others on staff led. It was a time of incredible citizen energy and incredible input. And we actually harvested a whole bunch of great volunteers who have been working in town government for the last 5 or 6 years since we did that master plan process. I think it's wonderful that we have executed so brilliantly on this master plan as a town, especially with the the leadership of our town planner, Dave Sharples, who I esteem so much. And I'm excited about the idea of initiating another round of master planning because it does this town so much good to do that process and then begin to execute it on it once again. So I'm very excited by this. I want to thank you, Mr. Chair, for putting this on the agenda and highlighting it. And thanks to our town manager and our town planner for all the great work they've done.
Great, thank you. Selectwoman Cowan?
No, I don't need to filibuster or take up any more time. I echo everything that has already been said.
Great. Perhaps this will be one of our topics at our goal-setting session in April.
I think that makes perfect sense, and I agree with Dave wholeheartedly that it is now time to really consider seriously updating the master plan. I was, as Dan mentioned, I was part of the last process in an in-depth way, and it was a very successful process. And at the same time, the town has continued to evolve, and so it's time again to bring this to the forefront and have people working on it, just like we did back in 2018. It was a fantastic process.
Agreed. Thank you.
And then may I add, just for folks that want to do a deeper dive, I just gave the summary. What I did in my analysis is I just talked about the summary. But what I did was I took each of the 67 items, and then I wrote about a dozen pages or so of exactly what we've completed, what we've done to achieve that goal. So anybody that really wants to dive into the details instead of just the summary, I'll put it on the website. If it's not on there already under master plan, I'll put the analysis there so people can see, okay, what was the goal and what was done to meet that goal.
Great. So, terrific. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you for your input on the last discussion item, by the way.
Thanks.
Okay, next we have the first of our 3 public hearings on the Planet Playground land. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing of the acquisition of Planet Playground land, map 69, lots 4 and 6, pursuant to RSA 41-14A.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Selectman Chartrand.
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan.
Aye.
Selectwoman Blanchard.
Aye.
The clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Public hearing is open. Mr. Bisson, do you have any words?
This is an exciting time. Look for a notification coming out for our subcommittee for the Planet Playground design team.
Great. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Any members of the public wish to speak to the acquisition? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Mr. Chair? Just want to let everyone know the trees came down, the hazardous trees today.
Okay.
So it's a very
Safer.
open look now. It's very, very striking. And we have some cleanup to do, but it's a little sawdust.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
There's a motion to close the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Selectman Chartrand.
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan.
Aye.
Selectwoman Blanchard.
Aye.
The clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye. Motion passes. Public hearing is closed. Any additional comments from the board? Seeing none, we do need to have 2 more public hearings, and the timing of which, the third will be at our meeting on March 18th. And unfortunately, because of the timing, we do need to have a special public hearing scheduled. Ideally, all 5 of us, but we only need a quorum of 3. And March 8th, which is a Friday, would fit the bill at 8 a.m. Do we have?
I'll be here already.
3
So
people?
yes.
I'm available. Selectwoman Belanger, Selectwoman Gilman.
Oh, I think I can. I think I can do that.
Wonderful.
Could I just make one?
Second. Selectman Chartrand, were you going to?
I'm available.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Selectwoman.
No, it's fine. Sorry, I was just looking at the calendar for a date. I noticed in the packet that there's a letter from the Conservation Commission on the Planet Playground property, but the planning board also recommended it at the meeting on March 22nd.
Okay. Mr. Dean, could we?
Excuse me, February. 22nd.
Attach that to the special packet of March 8th.
We will do that, and I would also report the Heritage Commission met on the 21st of February and endorsed it as well.
Okay, so we can include those in that
Yes.
special packet.
We'll do that.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, moving along. We have a recommendation, our last discussion item this evening.
Greg, are you leaving? I'm so sorry. Could I ask for a special consideration? I had to miss the last rec advisory committee because I had to go out of town for quickly. Greg, could you just give a quick update?
Sure. Wow. We talked about a variety of things. We talked about Play and Playground, obviously, and how it still need to go through the process. We talked about 10 Hampton Road and gave an update and asked for volunteers for a subcommittee that once we get to the bidding out, we can have a subcommittee to help interview the contractor. That we then also talked about robots, which I will be coming to the board to get you guys approval to get to purchase a line fielding robot. And not to go into details, but typically it takes 4 hours to set up a soccer field and line it. This can do it in 45 minutes. So efficiency is a big thing. And it's saved automatically, so you don't have to redo it every year. So the following year, it'd only take 25 minutes to line a field. And then also mowing robots, and I'll have a whole analysis because I know you guys are going to want to know it, breaking it down per acre to purchase some automated mowers for a few of our parks.
Like Zumbas for grass?
Correct. Correct. We did test pilot some
envision them chasing
in
children.
October, and it was phenomenal. And there's other benefits to it besides we don't have the personnel, but I mean it can be done at night because you can't hear them. It's silent mowers. It can be done in the rain. Can be Primex is I've already run by Primex, and they're thrilled to hear about this because it cuts down on liability and
Really?
workers' comp. Yeah. I don't want to ruin the whole surprise when I go to present it to you because, and I'll also show you a video of what they actually look like.
Okay.
But it would definitely relieve some of the pressure on our two park staff. And then we talked about briefly 23 Water Street and how you guys have to discuss it. We talked about the possible, that green space, because one of the rec advisory board members that possibly could be in front of town hall from the parking analysis. I'm like, there's no decisions been made, nothing.
Oh, thank you.
Just to rest easy. And then we talked about programming and how our programming is back in a vengeance. So we're busy.
Good.
Thank you, and sorry to put you on the spot, but thank you so much for that.
Not a problem.
I will save my questions for your presentation.
Okay.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Thank you, Greg.
Thanks, Greg.
Okay, our last discussion item, we have a recommendation from the E911 Committee for street name and street addressing, and we have Deputy Fire Chief Fritz here to speak to this. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. So we have 3 items that we'd like to bring forward. The first one is going to be a recommendation for a naming of an existing private right-of-way located at the property currently identified as 70 Beach Hill Road, which is located south of the Barker residence, which is at 62 Beach Hill Road. This new road would be called Paws Way, and the number we're going to assign is going to be number 51.
What was the number again? I'm sorry.
Number 51.
51.
And Paws Way would be the new name. And the rest of the information is in your packet. If there's anything else I would like explained.
Any members of the public wish to speak to this? Okay. Any questions or comments from the board?
No.
Okay, so then I would entertain a motion to name the existing private right-of-way located on the property currently identified as tax map parcel number 18-3, which is located south of the residence at 62 Beach Hill Road to 51, is that correct? 51 Paws Way, and to number the structures and/or dwellings accordingly in compliance with Chapter 14 of the Town Ordinance as depicted on the map in our packet.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please.
Selectman Chartran?
Aye.
Selectwoman, excuse me, Selectwoman Cowan.
Aye.
Selectwoman Belanger.
Aye.
And the clerk says aye, Mr. Chair.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
All right. Moving on, the next one is some cleaning up that the E911's been working with, and this particular one happens at 82 Linden Street, the Linden Fields apartment complex, and we're simply looking to give them the street address of units 1 through 17, Linden Fields. And we did get a voluntary change of address form filled out by the Exeter Public Housing Authority.
I'm sorry. I was helping her out.
It's okay.
Yeah, there was no public hearing for those, so that they're in a different section of the packet.
I knew I saw it, I just have to find it now.
Not a problem.
Okay, I got it. Thank
Sorry.
you. Okay. And you were just talking about, because there's a few, the 82 Linden, okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
Nope, that's it. We're just
Okay.
looking for a motion to accept 82 Linden, the residents at 82 Linden Street will now be units 1 through 17 Linden Fields.
Okay.
And again, the second page should be a voluntary change of address filled out by Exeter Housing Authority.
Where Linden Fields.
It's already called that.
Yep.
The folks that live there were already using it as their mailing address anyway.
Yeah.
So we're just basically assigning units 1 through 17?
It's a cleanup
Okay.
kind of a thing.
Any questions or comments?
No.
Okay, then I would move to change 82 Linden Street to 82 Linden
through
Street,
17.
units 1 through 17.
So moved.
Second.
Is that correct?
1 through 17 Linden
Yeah.
Fields.
Linden.
Linden Fields, so it's not
Linden
Linden
Fields.
Street, it's Linden Fields?
Linden Fields.
Okay. I'd like to
Withdraw.
withdraw my motion, please.
Yes, I'll withdraw my motion. Julie, you seconded it, right? Or no?
No, it didn't,
Okay.
because he didn't have Linden Fields.
So I would entertain a motion to change 82 Linden Street to 82 Linden Fields, units 1 through 17.
So moved.
Is that correct?
There's no
No,
82
82
Linden
anymore.
Fields. It's just going
No.
to be
Linden Fields.
1 through 17 Linden Fields.
Okay.
All right, sorry, I wasn't clear on this.
Okay.
So-
I'm going to withdraw my motion.
Tried
Again.
three times the charge. I would entertain a motion to change 82 Linden Street to Linden Fields, units 1 through 17.
Correct.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
Selectman Chartran.
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan.
Aye.
Selectwoman Belanger.
Aye.
And the clerk says aye, Mr. Chair.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0.
Very good, thank you. And then our last one, this one will be a lot easier to understand. The new property subdivision at 131 Portsmouth Ave, the old Osram Sylvania, they sold off a chunk of their land. The new company that's there is getting their access off of Holland Way, and we've simply assigned them the number of 181 Holland Way. And again, we've got the voluntary change of address from 131 Portsmouth Ave with Wakefield Thermal.
Any questions?
No?
Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the application for a change of address number from 131 Portsmouth Avenue to 181 Holland Way.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
Selectman Chartran.
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan.
Aye.
Selectwoman Belanger.
Aye.
The clerk says aye, Mr. Chair.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
You too, thank you. Jumping into regular business, ask the clerk, we have a couple of exemptions and attacks. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I move to approve acceptance of a timber tax from MAP 54, Lot 5, and MAP 63, Lot 205, in the amount of $278 for the tax year 2024.
Second?
Motion is second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
Selectman Chartran. Selectwoman Cowan?
Aye.
Selectwoman Belanger?
Aye.
Go back. Selectman Chartran? Clerk says aye.
Sorry about that. Aye.
Clerk says aye, Mr. Chair.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Would it be helpful where you're doing the roll call, would you like someone else to make the motions, or?
No, I'll just roll right into the.
Okay. Just want to give you the option.
Yeah. I move to approve a disability exemption for MAP 95, Lot 64, Unit 94. I recommend denying the application for disability exemption.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
Selectman Chartran?
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan?
Aye.
Selectwoman Belanger?
Aye.
Clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye, motion passes 5-0.
I move to approve a disability exemption for MAP 95, Lot 64, Unit 315, in the amount of $125,000 for the tax year 2024.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
Selectman Chartran?
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan?
Aye.
Selectwoman Belanger?
Aye.
And clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye, motion passes.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve a solar exemption for MAP 85, Lot 21, in the amount of $36,000 for the tax year 2024.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
Selectman Chartran?
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan?
Aye.
Selectwoman Belanger?
Aye.
And clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye, it's unanimous.
And finally, these two elderly exemptions are for the same amount. If
Please
the
roll.
board would indulge me, I'll roll them in together. Mr. Chair, I move to approve elderly exemptions for the following properties. MAP 64, Lot 105, Unit 80, and MAP 74, Lot 39, each in the amount of $183,751 for the tax year 2024.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
Selectman Chartran?
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan?
Aye.
Selectwoman Belanger?
Aye.
Clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye, it's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Dean, we've got one more in the permits and approvals. You wanted to just speak briefly on the settlement, the opioid prescription.
Sure. This was a suit filed by the state of New Hampshire against several companies regarding opioids. And as a political subdivision of the state, we have participated in the proceedings, and basically the state has come to a settlement arrangement that will bring approximately $100 million into New Hampshire to help fight the opioid crisis. So in order to take advantage of that situation, the town needs to authorize signing these agreements, and the state will collect the money and then hopefully in the future dole out money to cities and towns as part of this settlement. We don't know how much, but there will be some pass-through on it.
And the only other way the town could accomplish that was filing suit on its own, which
Correct.
of course doesn't make any sense, so.
Right.
And you need a motion to authorize the select board to sign this, or who would sign this?
It could be the town manager if the board so chooses. Or the chair of the board.
You have it now, or it's going to come whenever it comes, right?
What's that?
What's the settlement? You don't have something to sign right now, right?
No, I have the forms in the packet.
Oh, okay.
Yes. But they don't need to be signed immediately, but the Deputy Attorney General is looking for.
Well, let's get them back.
For them
as soon as
to
possible.
come back, yeah.
Okay. What's your preference? Board or town manager?
Well, town manager's faster, so.
Okay, I would entertain a motion. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
As long as he signs them tonight.
Right, but that's what I was getting at.
Yeah, oh, sorry.
You have them to sign tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Everyone good with that? Then I would entertain a motion to authorize the town manager to sign all appropriate paperwork relative to the opioid settlement brought by the New Hampshire Attorney General.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
Selectman Chartran?
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan?
Aye.
Selectwoman Belanger?
Aye.
The clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye, it's unanimous. Thank you. Mr. Dean, Town Manager's report, please.
Okay, so our groundwater exploration program is continuing. We have an agreement in place with PEA to be able to do pump testing down off Drinkwater Road, so that should be taking place in the next couple of months. So we're happy to report that. The townwide revaluation is progressing. That's being done through the assessing office, working with MRI, and they're working on that. The zoning board approved 4 units where the old mobile station on Main Street is currently. That happened last week. And then the siphons project is continuing. We're at 500-plus feet, and the drilling's going well, so we're hopeful that that project will continue to go well.
And did I hear possibly late spring for the final project conclusion?
Late spring, I think they are going to go a little later than that.
Okay.
Yes.
Do
Yes.
we have an estimate?
I think they were thinking like by June.
June? Okay.
June.
Well, if it's early June, that's still late spring.
That's. And then obviously a couple of meetings coming up. Pickpocket Dam feasibility study meeting is tomorrow night on the 27th over at the town hall. We did do a lot of notification for that, and we made sure we got to the Exeter abutters, as well as we got the trailer out at the dam site, so people were able to see that.
Can I interrupt 1 second? Will there, because I know you won't be there, will there be somebody there if an allegation is made that the town did not notice folks on time? Will there be somebody there from town staff to speak to the fact that we did?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
And then I am headed on vacation, and I will be on vacation from tomorrow till March 5th, and I'll be out of state, and the assistant town manager will be acting in my stead.
Okay, great.
While I'm away.
And staff has been notified?
Yes, they're aware.
Great. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Dean? All right. Select Board Committee reports. Selectwoman Belanger.
Conservation Commission meeting it was on February 13th. They recommended the acquisition of the Planet Playground, the property parcel of land it sits on. An Academy student reached out to Kristen Murphy, had expressed interest in the native seed library that we have at our public library. So that will be beefed up a little bit. They voted to expend some funds to help the volunteer with that, getting it organized. Earth Day is coming up, and there'll be a student tree project with a scavenger, things like that. This past Saturday was the first in a series of sustainable films. They held it at PEA. Unfortunately, I was not feeling well and didn't attend. But they tied it in with Helpsy and had people bring to donate clothing for Helpsy, which was, I can't wait to hear how it went. And I just wanted to remind the public that that the Conservation Commission works really hard to put on public events. They had a moonlight snowshoe walk, but of course it was just going to be a walk without the snowshoes because we don't have the snow. There's a herd bird contest going on. You download an app and you hear a bird and it tells you what it is, and then there's a process of identifying it and letting people know. But save the date in your calendar. The Alloy Festival is scheduled for May 11th from 10 to 1, so please mark your calendars for that. And it's still early, but there was some talk of participating in a state program to count fish migration. It's every 10 minutes from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. from mid-April to the end of May. So Kristen's trying to gather up some interest from PEA and high school and different age groups, and I nudged the town manager to consider maybe allowing employees to spend 10 minutes counting fish and coming back, since it's not far from the town office. A thought.
That sounds fun.
I thought so. And then Planning Board was February 27th. The application for 81 Front Street was tabled again. So that will be back on the agenda for the Planning Board for March 14th. And then Mr. Sharples started a process, as he does. He introduced two maps to the planning board, one from 1884 and another current, showing density, to consider filing for an urban exemption, RSA 483B12. Next, the planning board supported it. Next, he's going to bring it to Conservation Commission, and then he'll, if they support it, we'll bring it before this board.
Terrific.
And that's it.
Thank you. Selectwoman Gilman.
I have no committee reports. Should I go on with the House Representatives things? Last week at the House, both on my committee and on Thursday in the hall, we took several actions. And just to remind people, when I say something passed or failed, it means it's only seen the House action yet. And if it passed out of the House, then it goes to the Senate. So don't be thinking it's going right to the governor's table. Some highlights were, I just had it in front of me. Relative to the legalization of and regulation of cannabis for making appropriations thereof. That one passed by a vote of 239 to 141, and I have to say that was the largest division of all the bills we voted on. Also, we had one that was relative to establishing the New Hampshire Legal Tender Act and establishing a state bullion depository. The bill, as created, would have us all be paid in gold and silver, which, $100 a year in gold, that'd be great.
On the market.
The motion there was to refer it to an interim study, so it's going to go back to the committee, and we'll hear something in September or November. And that's what happened there. And then another interesting one was about firearm purchasers' privacy. There's a code on when someone makes a sale, and let's see. When someone makes a sale, there's a code on the receipt from banks and credit cards, and somebody wants to have that removed, that process removed, so that, privacy in purchasing. So that one went through several things, but it was postponed, so it's not moving on from the House this year. There was one. One is to the definition of a scholarship organization for using education tax credits, and that bill is intended to have the charitable group that is right now administering the education freedom accounts be a charitable group incorporated in New Hampshire. Currently, the one we use is in New York. And there's another one to talk about the not the duties, had to do with the Commissioner of Education and background for the job. Still talking about school funding. It's not going well. The Advisory Redistricting Commission. Let's see. It ought to pass. Yes, it ought to pass. Sorry, I'm trying to find the ones that I had underlined, but I guess Philip. Oh, the big one was I thought was interesting that this isn't done everywhere. I thought we do. It's about an employee's unused earned time. And apparently there's some people are having trouble getting time that they earn when they leave a business, whether, on their own or by, excuse me, by the business own, are not getting, or taking time, or not taking time, I'm sorry, not using their vacation, but when they leave the business, don't get that cash back. I thought it was a law, but apparently we have to make it one.
It is in other states.
Well, this is New Hampshire.
Right. Doesn't mean much.
No, that only works when it's something you want.
Yeah.
Trying to raise the hourly rate again over a period of years, from the $7.25, which it has been for since 2009. And it would be over a period of years up to $17 per hour by 2029, so that's 5 years. And let's see, it ended up not tabled, indefinitely postponed. So that means we're not talking about it again this year. The labor union one was also indefinitely postponed. And I think that's really the highlights, or things that would be important to us.
Another busy couple weeks for you.
Yes, and I would encourage people who are interested in the housing crisis to watch on the General Court's YouTube website the Special Committee on Housing. They had 7 bills, I believe, and they were a special committee that the Speaker of the House set up with no knowledge from any other people. And they wrote their own bills and put them all in, and they're all the people on the committee are sponsoring the bills, so you know how it's going to get voted on. Right. But they have several things that are very similar. The big ones that are freaking people out are the 2 ADUs by right in residential property. Any residential zone. And there's more detail in it that makes it, I think, not great.
Oh.
But that's to be debated on March 8th, the Friday after this. And I think I'll stop there.
Okay. Thank you. We'll be back next week. You can fill us in.
Next week, we have this week off, so
Okay.
Next week I can just fill you in on the spots I missed this week.
Okay, thank you. Selectman Chartrand?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did want to report on a joint Energy and Sustainability Advisory Committee meeting. The Energy Committee and the Sustainability Advisory Committee met last Wednesday, the 21st. And the meeting began with a little bit of a reality check. Ostensibly, the meeting was to see if those two committees wanted to somehow merge. The reality check was that the time frame that might be in common for both of the committees to meet in just wasn't there. So that was kind of a down note at the beginning of the meeting. But then we proceeded to kind of review projects that each committee was working on. And it became clear as we discussed the projects each committee was working on, how much fervor each of the committees had for the other's agenda. It was really remarkable to watch. There was incredible energy in the room. And we ended the meeting by agreeing that perhaps we could look at joint meetings on a quarterly or biannual basis, 2 or 4 times a year, which I think was a great accomplishment for this joint meeting. So for now, the two committees, I think, are going to continue to operate separately, but they are going to look for synergies both in terms of projects as well as drawing energy from the other committee. For instance, the Sustainability Advisory Committee was very interested in the window dressers program and had a lot of helpful comments, and some volunteerism was going on. And the Energy Committee was equally interested in some of the work that the Sustainability Advisory Committee is doing around sort of getting all the wet stuff out of the blue bags and getting it to the transfer station. So there was a lot of interest in the composting project that the Sustainability Advisory Committee is working on. So it was a great meeting. I really enjoyed it. It was actually one of the best meetings I've been in over the past year. And we'll see what comes from these two committees looking to harness synergies together. Thanks for the opportunity to report on that, Mr. Chair.
Sure, that sounds productive. I'm happy to hear that. And is the Sustainability Committee still meeting? Was it every other month or?
I think they're going to shoot. Chairman Zygmunt indicated that he was going to shoot for every other month. So 6 meetings a year. And we're going to put a lot of elbow grease on making sure we have quorums at those 6 meetings. I must say, Chairman Zygmunt's got game. He ran along with Cliff Sinnott, the chair of the Energy Committee. The two of them did a great job of running this joint meeting very seamlessly and very collegially. I was really impressed with both of them.
Great. Well, that sounds like a good resolution and a good path forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
And
You all heard my update. Thank you very much.
and I had the Swayze Park trustees last Wednesday, and it was a quick meeting. It was more placeholders, and not much can be done at this point because of either the siphon project or the ground being soft. But it was a quick meeting. They did talk about the joint meeting with the trustee of the trust fund, which Mr. Dean and I also attended. And the decision to keep the Swayze Trust in the bank in Ohio for now and revisit that in another year. And the reason for that is that there's a guaranteed rate of return in Ohio. We want to see, how, first of all, if the warrant article passes, that the trustees of the trust fund have, but then also, should it pass, how that works out. And I think the 5% return they're getting in Ohio, plus the bank does all of the tax return and stuff, so less work for staff. So that was the update there. Speaking of which, as we segue into correspondence, we have a letter from Dwayne Staples, the Swayze Park trustee chair, to Peter Lennon, the chair of the trustee of the trust fund, with a check for the deposit to the maintenance fund. We have the NHMA bulletin and also a memo from the New Hampshire Local Welfare Administration Association about volunteer income tax assistance. Folks to review. Looking at the board calendar, our next select board meeting is next Monday, March 4th, and then followed by March 18th. But other interested meetings, tomorrow night, again, at the town hall at 7 a.m. will be the pickpocket feasibility study.
7 a.m. or
7 p.m.
Ouch.
Jeez, that wouldn't have gone well.
No.
7 p.m. tomorrow night at the town hall, and March 8th again next Friday at 8 a.m. That's the a.m. I was thinking, for the second Planet Playground hearing. The town election, March 12th at the Talbot Gym from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. With that,
Are
go
we,
ahead.
so we're not going to schedule anything after the 18th for right now, for the select board?
We could take a look at the calendar for next Monday.
Okay.
And move forward. I got us to the election and the first select board meeting after the election, and
Got it.
from there. But I think, absent any holidays or
We should be on schedule
special,
before.
circumstances, we'd be on schedule for every other Monday.
Until Memorial Day weekend.
Until Memorial Day. We do need to set our goal-setting session sometime in April, so maybe we could start thinking about.
Yeah, and when I was looking at the calendar, I also had a reminder for a couple meetings out that we were going to look at a date for all boards
Yep.
again.
I think sometime in the spring would be,
Yeah, after April.
yeah, goal-setting.
Yeah, after the appointments are made.
Yeah, that's a good point too, April 3rd, so sometime in May. Last order of business, I would entertain a motion to enter non-public under RSA 91A 32A.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
Selectman Chartrand?
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan?
Aye.
Selectwoman Belanger?
Aye.
The clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye, it's unanimous. The board will be moving into non-public.
Thank you for tuning in
Selectman
to
Chartrand.
Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.